Hey everybody, welcome back once again. Um, it's always very exciting to record these. I just know, I just feel like if it can help one person, then it's worth it. And like me, anytime I hear information, third and fourth time, it finally sinks in and I get it. But one thing I constantly talk about with my clients, and I'm able to go through whether they have traumatic situation, a breakup, someone dies in their family, like whatever it is, like what the biggest thing you have to do is try to identify what you're actually feeling. For me, a lot of times when I had a breakup, the biggest thing that I was feeling, you go through the stages, anger, things like that, but I was really mad at myself. Everything I felt, it was towards myself. And a lot of it was I let that happen to me, right? Um, but then, when I look back and again, I've said this, but a lot of people have heard the story about my parents, lost them about 8 months ago, I think. And a lot of people just don't understand how I'm able to cope and deal with the grief like I am. And I say I have closure, but it's like, do you really ever have closure? It's one of those things you learn from it, but it's tough, right? And so, when I look back, and the biggest thing, like when they passed away, we had the greatest relationship ever, right? And and it was only because I had moments where we were able to communicate and really kind of repair our relationship with each other, if that makes sense. And I mean, it wasn't broken, right? But, and I'm sure a lot of people can identify with this, but, I had a lot of times I would go to their house, or I would feel angst about going there, or I would just be just troubled about being there, right? And it wasn't about actually talking to them that bothered me. So I had to really kind of just hit that stop button, that pause button on my life, and kind of identify what I was really feeling. And I'm telling you guys, this is so important to do. But what I realized was that a lot of what I was feeling about them, about their living situation, things like that, was guilt. And it was guilt that I wasn't able to help them more. It was guilt that I wasn't able to be there, or whatever it was, right? And so once I actually came to terms with what I was really feeling, it kind of went away. And so I was able to identify, okay, if I'm feeling guilty about not helping more, or guilty about something, then I need to fix that by doing it. And so that was one thing I was able to do. And it was a huge help for me as far as becoming a better son, having a better relationship. The other things I did, was I never wanted to leave. I just think it's important, and this goes back to how men are horrible at this, about communicating and just being vulnerable. And someone asked me the other day, kind of what happened in my past marriages, and I had to just say it was a breakdown in communication, right? Which that's what I preach, is communication. So I learned from that, and now I'm here to try to teach the world what I'm saying. But um, it was at there were several times where I think people just feel like they're being beaten up on and picked on, and I can't imagine what it's like to be older and not being able to do the things you're used to doing. And I can't imagine that, right? So I can't relate, but I can only see what my parents went through, leading up to um in their older years. But it's one of those things. you know i i I got to see firsthand what matters, on your deathbed. And that's where, everything I've been teaching, everything I've learned along the way, well, now it's even evolved differently. But it's one of those things that, a couple of years ago, I actually wrote a letter to my dad. And, sitting down and writing this letter was the hardest thing to do. only because I knew where it was going to end up with both of us crying, right? And we never really talked too much about stuff. Like we might have been working on something, had a few words back and forth, but otherwise we didn't actually sit and chat. It was just an understanding that we loved each other kind of environment. And I didn't need him to say that to me. I didn't need to be hugged. Like it was one of those things. Everything was just was perfect with that relationship. But um, I felt like he needed to hear some stuff, and I needed to get it out. And so it was one of those things. I'm gonna try not to cry, but I don't think it's possible. It's one of those things that I just decided that on Father's Day a few years ago, I was going to write a letter to him, and I was going to write this letter, and I was going to blame him in this letter for all the good things that he has done for me or given me, right? Like these traits that I've inherited from him. And I think there's so much blame passed in the world and so much misery that we don't acknowledge or blame all the good stuff. And any kind of tension or animosity there is in the world, if you just take the time to write a letter like this, oh my gosh, it releases so much of this. And so I did that, and I mean it made a huge difference. And I just think, I mean, I can't express to anybody enough that everybody should do this, right? And I've even done this with my children, like try to write letters or texts or let them know what's up. And I don't keep anything from them. So it's one of those things, they're fully in the loop. I want them to know whether they want to know or not what's going on with me. But me and my mom used to talk about afterlife and if there was heaven. Like, I mean, who really knows what's where, right? But we had these pretty good conversations about, things like that. And so that was it was the whole, I think all of 2020 was just a really, really the best relationship that anybody could have. It was good. I mean, I wasn't working. I had the time to be over there for them a lot, and they weren't going anywhere. So they had all kinds of stuff that we were able to do, and it was I mean, it was just really good. And I have a lot of clients, who go through divorce, and they're just so upset and they're bothered, and they just can't seem to identify what they're really feeling. And I think that's the hardest part, is being honest with yourself. Um, and I don't. There's a lot of times, people have lost someone in their life. They didn't get a chance to say those things they wanted to say, or maybe they didn't realize it till now, and they think it's too late. Well, it's not too late. You can write a letter to someone who's passed away, and you can write everything down of everything you're going to say to them when you see them again, right? So when you're in heaven and they're in heaven, that's the things you want to say to them. Or if they come to you as a spirit, a ghost, whatever, the things you want to say to them. If you just write those things down, you get it out of your head. It takes so much burden and guilt off of you that it's quite incredible. Um, but that's the biggest thing that I think people need to understand, is to understand what they're really feeling. Now I use this, I was introduced to Buddhism years ago. It's not a religion. It's more of a way of life, and it's a state of mind, right? And Buddhism is really just awareness. I mean, once you can be aware of what you're feeling, be aware of your environment, things like that, it's so important. And I've used this approach for myself. I've used this approach for clients, and you can take this approach for even, your eating habits. And that is, being aware of, are you really hungry, or is it texture, or is it taste? What is it? Or are you bored? Just understanding what those things are you're feeling, those triggers that make you want to eat. I think once you're able to identify those things, it helps buffer them or lessen them a little bit. So I think that's super important too. Again, this goes back to awareness. and don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm able to with my parents just turn out the light and not look back. I still have um moments where I wonder, or I forget, and I think I'm going to pick up the phone and call my mom. Like, you have those moments like that where it's just that habit. Well, eventually that habit's going to, get duller and duller and go away. And that's just life, right? But I think it's one of those things, just understanding and trusting that everything is okay, that I still believe everything happens exactly how it's supposed to. But I really, you know, the shocking side of things is that, I really think back. I'm sure it happened, but like I don't remember. It's gonna be hard. Uh, like I don't remember me and my dad ever saying "I love you." Right? I'm sure when I was a little kid, um, I said it, and he said it, but then after a certain while, I think ego and you want to be vulnerable, you got to be a strong man, whatever. It just doesn't get said. And I know we did. It's not like I needed to hear it, like I said, but it was one of those things I don't remember it ever being said. And so, what I think is so crazy is that even though I don't remember it ever being said, um, it was it was the last thing we said to each other. I mean, that just shows you guys there is no guarantee of tomorrow, So you got to say all that stuff that needs to be said. And I think it's so important to, just get it out there. And it doesn't matter what it is. You just got to say it. And if you just can't say it, then you got to be aware of why you can't, And I think that's so important. But that's the big takeaway. And again, I think, grief is just another emotion, just like sadness, just like happiness. I mean, we all have our triggers. And once you identify those triggers and how what they do to you, then they lessen. You can control then when they come on and don't come on. But whew, that's just a couple of things that I work with and like with my clients. And when you don't understand what you're feeling, it does affect whether you can lose weight, or it does affect whether you can exercise or are good at your job. Like, all those things come into effect. So I I urge you to just try to be more aware of what you're feeling and all those triggers. And if you just can't, you're just spinning your wheels and you're just angry and you don't know what's going on in the world, then you got to give me a call and I will help you unravel this mess. Um, and I've done it with myself, and I thought I was an impossible hard case, not going to figure it out. I'd been to therapy, I'd been to all those places trying to be better, just couldn't figure it out. And once I became honest with myself, the world became easy. All right, guys. Well, leave your comments. If you're watching YouTube, like, share, subscribe. Give me your comments on iTunes, Google, Spotify. And thanks for listening, guys. I want to be here to help you, and I hope this message can help a lot of you. And all right, that's it. Have a blessed day, guys. Bye.